friends, I am coming at you today with a lot of books for the ultimate summer TBR. Let's get into it. My name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. I am very excited because it is time indeed for another reader's mood list. I love a good list. I really do. If you've never seen one of these before, instead of doing monthly TBRs, I love doing seasonal TBRs. I don't know why. I think it's just because I'm very indecisive and I like a little wiggle room. So I always put way too many books on these things. I try to get to about half of them. And actually I did get to over half for my spring TBR, so let's keep the ball rolling, okay? Before we go ahead and dive into the stack of books though, and I show you all of the books that I'm hoping to read this summer, I would love to thank today's sponsor, which is Burga. Hi friends, I am so excited to chat with you today about today's sponsor because the sponsor of today's video is going to be Burga. Burga designs beautiful protective cases for your electronic devices like your phone, AirPods, laptop, and iPad. They actually launched their designs based on fashion trends, and every single case is honestly so beautiful and crafted with aesthetics in mind. Their cases are often used by celebrities like Taylor Swift and are also frequently trending on TikTok. And these cases aren't just beautiful, they also come with a lot of features like raised bezels, fabric interior for their elite cases, and also they come with a 12-month warranty. And they were extremely kind because they actually sent me several different cases to choose from, and honestly, I am in love with every single one of these. I chose the Aloha case for a pop of bright color, the Orange Lemonade case for a bit of whimsy, the Seven Seas case for a coastal vibe, and finally, I also chose the Leisure Club case because I just thought it looked really cute. I'm also currently saving up for an iPhone 15 right now, and I ended up choosing the Spicy Elite phone case for that. And I picked out a new case for my iPad and went with the Seven Seas design, and then I chose the Leisure Club case for my laptop. And I actually feel like the way they all look together looks so good. They also make these gorgeous matching rings to hold your phone with in matching designs, and I got the one that matched the Seven Seas design on my phone, and I am so obsessed with the aesthetic of how everything looks together. I just think this looks so beachy and coastal over the summertime, but also I feel like it just looks really elegant. And right now, if you're interested, Burga is having this really great sale where if you purchase 2 phone cases, you actually get 4. And this is a great deal if you want to go in with your friends or your family members, or if you just want a lot of different options for the summertime. And on top of their 2 for 4 sale, Burga has also very kindly given me a discount code to share with all of you. So if you're interested, you can actually use my code, which is AlexandraX15, to get 15% off of your purchase. All of the links in my code can be found down below. And again, a huge thank you to Burga for sponsoring today's video. And now back to the video. Okay, so as I was saying, I have a ton of books here, and obviously I'm not going to be able to read all of them, but hopefully I can read quite a few. Let's go ahead and start with my Patreon book club. So if you didn't know, I actually have 2 book clubs over at Patreon. I have a middle grade one, which meets 3 to 4 times a year, and then I have a regular adult one that meets every single month, and we have live shows. There's like a really fun discussion on Discord about it. I love my book club. These are the books that we will be reading, and I also have these books here. So for June, we will be reading The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. This is an adult cozy fantasy about a woman who decides that she wants to follow in the path of her grandmother and become a witch, which means that she can't technically fall in love because honey witches in the family are cursed to basically never find their soulmate. Then for July, we're reading 2 different books. The first one is going to be The Myth of Monsters Medusa by Katherine Marsh. This is going to be really fun. I'm very excited to read this. This is about a girl named Ava. I think Ava accidentally enters a classmate who is bullying her or something. She discovers that she has magical powers and she is sent away to a mysterious boarding school in Venice, Italy. And the school was apparently founded by the Olympian gods. I heard that premise and I just got very excited. Also, I've looked it up and this is an award-winning book already, and it has a really high rating on Goodreads, so I'm very excited to read this. Then the next book that we are reading in the month of July is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This is an adult fantasy about a woman named Lucy Hart who goes to a mysterious island called Clock Island, where she's going to compete in a series of potentially magical games to win a copy of a sequel for a children's children's series. The whole thing is hosted by a children's author who remains very mysterious. I don't actually know how much fantasy is going to be in this, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a fantasy, and I'm very, very excited. Like, I just love the premise so much. And then finally for August, we are going to be reading the Dallargut Dream Department Store, and this is by Mai Yi Lee. This is a translated work. I believe it was first published, I want to say in Korean. I hope I'm getting that correct. And it's about a department store where you can go and buy dreams and potentially sell dreams. And it just, like, the vibes sound perfect. That's it for the Patreon books, but since we're on the topic of fantasy, let me share with you the rest of the fantasies that I can't wait to hopefully get to this summer. The first one is going to be the newest one by T. Kingfisher. I love T. Kingfisher, okay? And this newest release is called Thornhedge. It says, not all curses should be broken. The only thing I know about this is that this is about a fairy tale that is flipped inside out. That's all I know. That's all I need to know. I think it's going to be funny. I have great expectations. It's very short. I think this will be perfect to read like by a pool or something and just pretend that I'm in fairy tale world. You know? The next fantasy is called How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying, and this is by Django Wexler. I really hope I'm saying that right. And this is an adult fantasy, and it sounds like a comedy, and apparently it's also a romance. So like, it has everything. And this book is about a woman who is trying to take down the villain. She's also stuck in a time loop, and every single time she fails at saving the day and defeating the villain, she has to actually go back and relive all of her mistakes and try again to defeat the villain. And eventually she's just like, you know what? I can't defeat the villain, so I might as well become the villain. And then the final fantasy that I'm really excited to get to is called Spells for Forgetting, and this is by Adrienne Young. I recently read The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young, and I loved it so much. I feel like Adrienne Young is a really strong author, and this is about a woman named Emery who lives on this mysterious, like, misty little island, and the island apparently is supposed to be drenched in folklore and magic. She works, I believe, at her family's tea shop. I hope I'm getting that right. Yes, it's called Blackwood's Tea Shop, Herbal Tonics and Tea Leaf Readings. And then this is about what happens when somebody from her past shows up to the island and strange things start happening. I'm very excited. I don't really know a lot more, but I've just heard great things about this book. I really want to pick it up, and I loved the author's first book that I read. Man, we really flew through that list. Okay, now that I've gone ahead and shared with you all of the fantasy, let's move on to the romance. So all of the romance I'm reading is just gonna be on my Kindle this year, and I'm really focusing on two new releases. The first one is gonna be by Emily Henry. I read a new Emily Henry book every single summer. It's one of my favorite things. And this year she came out with the book Funny Story. Funny Story by Emily Henry is following Daphne, and Daphne moves to, I think, Michigan to be with her fiance Peter. And once she's there, she actually gets her dream job as a children's librarian. However, unfortunately, Peter ditches her and is like, I can't marry you because I'm actually in love with my childhood best friend. Good for him, but bad for her, you know? She technically can't afford to live by herself, so she has to get a roommate. And she ends up deciding to let Miles be her roommate. And Miles was the fiance of Peter's childhood best friend. Does that make sense? Daphne and Miles, both of their fiancés, left them for each other. And so now both of them are gonna be roommates. And you know stuff is gonna happen. And you know it's gonna be a great time. And then the last book that I really wanna read for the summer that is a romance is going to be Abby Jimenez's new book, which is Just for the Summer. And this book is also supposed to be kind of funny. It's about two people who both believe that they are cursed in love. They both have said that whoever they date, they end up, as soon as they break up with them, finding the love of their life. And so both of these people are going to date each other, hoping to break both of their curses. But obviously, they're probably just gonna fall in love with each other, and I'm very excited for it. And those, I think, are the only two romances that I'm going to be reading for the summer, but if you have any recommendations, please feel free to leave them down below. Let's go on to our next category, which is a very random category, and it's called Weird Books. Yes. So recently, I have been getting obsessed with a very specific vibe for books, and that is weird girl literary fiction. It's trending on TikTok. I don't know how to explain it other than the main protagonist of these books are usually really messy and unhinged, and sometimes speculative things happen, but not always. These are some of the books that I've recently been devouring. Rouge by Mona Awad, I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel, Death Valley by Marissa Broder, When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill, which is the best book in the whole wide world. And then just last night, I also finished Perfume and Pain by Anna Dorn. And I've adored all of these books. So I want to continue reading strange, weird literary fiction throughout the summer. And I'm going to be fulfilling that with these books here. The first one is Samantha Hunt's The Seas. Look at how beautiful this is. I don't know how much of this is speculative versus more literary fiction-esque, but either way, I definitely want to read this book. I'm just going to read you one of the reviews on here because I feel like this sounds so good. It says, a gothic fairy tale about a love-sickened girl who may be a mermaid trapped in an alcoholic town beside a deeply haunted sea. Creepy and poetic, subversive, and strangely funny, The Seas is a phenomenal piece of literature. The next book here, I'm a little bit hesitant to have on the list just because I read Melissa Broder's last book, which is Death Valley. And while I felt like it was very strong literary-wise, I don't know if I connected to the writing as much, but I do feel like it is the season to read The Pisces. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it out for the summer. And this book is following Lucy. Lucy is writing her dissertation on Sappho when she ends up falling in love with a merman. And that's yes. Let's continue on with the mermaid train here. Let's talk about Chlorine. This is by Jade Song, and this is another weird, strange literary fiction with speculative elements. This is about a girl who starts to become a mermaid. I think she's on a swim team, and she just randomly starts to become a mermaid one day. I have heard that this is not a funny book. I've heard that this is a really serious book, and it deals with a lot of trauma, so please check trigger warnings if you decide to pick it up yourself. But I have heard great things about this. I actually bought this last year when I went to New York City with my friends, and I really want to read it. Next up is a book that I have heard mixed things about, but I think I really want to try it out, and it's called Brutes, and this is by Diz Tate. The back says, huddled at a bedroom window, a group of teenagers peer out at their scorched, swampy, fame-hungry town. Taking turns with their binoculars, their gaze sweeps across the highway and the abandoned construction sites to the lakes. Figures drift across the landscape, mothers, fathers, a preacher's daughter. These girls know everything about everyone, perhaps too much. And it's just about a group of toxic besties, I think, who are like being toxic besties. I don't really know anything else. Finally, we have our last speculative fiction. This is by Holly Gramazio, and it's called The Husbands. And this one is following a woman who shows up one day to her apartment and she finds that she has a husband. And she's very confused about this because she was single when she left the apartment that day. And then she finds herself even more confused when he goes up to the attic, and when he comes back down, there is a totally different man chilling before her. Honestly, way more efficient way of dating than Tinder. I would volunteer for that. I think I'm gonna love it. And that is it as far as weird, strange fiction that I want to read for the summer. Let's move on to the next category, which are going to be thrillers and horror books. So for this category, I will say that these titles might swap out. I am gonna be participating in Summerween. This is one of my favorite readathons ever. It's hosted by Gabby. I will link down below any information on it, but basically it's just encouraging you to read spooky, scary books throughout the summer, but also specifically during the readathon time, which I think is the first week of July or so. So these are some titles I will probably be adding to this list. I know Riley Sager is coming out with a new title this summer that I'm definitely gonna be adding. So this is the most, I think, flexible list, but these are some books that I think I wanna get to this summer. Starting with the reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. This book is a YA book by the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It just got so dark, oh my God. And we're following Belle. Belle's mother has disappeared a long time ago. They're actually filming a true crime documentary trying to figure out what actually happened to her mom, whose name is Rachel Price. As they're filming, I think her mom comes back into the picture. But as she talks about what happened, Belle becomes more and more wary of what her mom is saying, and she feels like she can't trust her mom at all. So this is the story about what really happened to her mom and what is gonna happen to Belle now that she's like thrown into the middle of it. Next up, this is like an old book, but everyone who's read this has said that it's really funny and it's really dramatic, and that's my vibe. And that is Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. This book is just about housewives, ex-husbands, and murder. Literally, that's all it says on the back. I love books like this, especially when you're reading it by a pool or something with like a little margarita in your hand. That's my perfect summer day. Speaking of my perfect summer day, it might also include some rich people drama. This is called The Other Half by Charlotte Vessel. I've talked about this book in a couple different videos. I'm very excited to read it. It's about super wealthy, privileged people who all get together to celebrate some guy's birthday, and his girlfriend ends up And now they're all suspects and we have to figure out which rich person ended up killing her. The next book is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. This is his newest release. I think it was just released this year. And this is following Lana, who is an ex-movie star, and she invites all of her friends to this mysterious Greek island. And then once they're all on the island, somebody is murdered. I'm very, very excited. First of all, it takes place in Greece. Second of all, I do think that it's gonna have lots and lots of major summer vibes. But also third of all, doesn't it just sound so dramatic and juicy? And then finally, the last thriller that I have here is called Malice House, and this is by Megan Shepherd. This is a book that I actually bought last year, and I really wanted to read it for Summerween. I'm hoping to read it this year for Summerween. This is about a woman who goes to her father's seaside manor, which the vibes are already vibing, okay? And I guess she's trying to kind of like collect his things together because he has just passed away. And while she's there, she discovers a manuscript because he was a writer. Sorry, forgot to say that. He was a writer. And the manuscript is about monsters. While she is reading this manuscript, she has this desire to illustrate all of these monsters. And while this is happening, apparently there's like a secret society involved and a bunch of other stuff. I don't know if this is more of a horror or if it's more of a thriller. And I also don't know if it has any speculative elements in it, but it has to do with monsters. It has to do with this mysterious manuscript, and it has to do with a bunch of people, I think, who are trying to find this manuscript. Who doesn't love a good monster in the summertime? And that's it as far as the horror and thriller category is concerned. Now let's go on to the next category, which is kind of like sci-fi-esque. Sort of? Yes. The first book in the sci-fi series is actually not this book. I grabbed the wrong book and now I can't find the book, but it's by Stephen King and it's called 11/22/63, I believe. And this is a time travel book. This is about a man who actually ends up, I think, being able to go back in time. And I think he's recruited actually by a time travel agency, and they are trying to stop the assassination of JFK. And it just sounds really, really fascinating. I've heard that it's also a love story. It's not supposed to be scary. It's more of like a really interesting, intriguing thriller type book. I'm very, very excited to read this, even though it is really, really thick. And also, even though I don't know where my copy is. The next book is also all about time. It's called The Ministry of Time, and this is by Kaitlyn Bradley. This book is a little hard to describe, but it's about a woman who works, I think, for like a branch of the government who are trying to figure out how to do time travel. She ends up like volunteering, and she ends up being assigned, I think, to like either be sent back in time or forward in time or something with a man from the past. And it's about them doing this time travel experiment together. And I also believe that at some point they might fall in love with each other. This book has been getting such rave reviews. I don't know if I'm doing the synopsis justice, but I'm really, really intrigued. I love the idea of like a time travel agency. I'm really in the mood to read about time loops and time travel. I don't know if you can tell. So I'm very excited to read this very, very soon. And then the final sci-fi is a book that I have had on my TBR, like my physical TBR, for years now. And I just really, really want to read it this summer. It's called Spoonbenders, and this is by Daryl Gregory. And this book is about a family, and they all have magical abilities. One or two can do telekinesis, another one is psychic. I think somebody else is kind of like a natural lie detector. And then one day, all of the powers mysteriously kind of go away. And now the family is being hunted down, I think, by like the CIA and by a couple of different people. And one person in the family discovers that he actually does still have magical powers, but I don't know if anybody else does. And it's about how they have to try to come together as a family to make sure that they don't get hurt or, I don't know, like captured or anything by all of these people who are after them. It sounds very, very fun. It sounds kind of like a superhero family or something. I'm very intrigued about this. I think it'll be great, and I'm very excited to hopefully get to it this summertime. And finally, besties, we are on to our final category. And our final category, I think these are like contemporary and literary fiction reads. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first one, which is a short story collection. I've been really enjoying reading more short story collections this year. And this one is one that I've actually started and I'm really loving it. It's called The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, and this is by Disha Philia, I think. I'm gonna read the back. It says, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies explores the raw and tender places where Black women and girls dare to follow their true desires. The first story that I read in here was unbelievably beautiful. The writing in here is so strong, and I think I'm really gonna enjoy this collection. So I'm very excited to read the rest of it over the summer. Next up, I wanted to throw a classic in there, and that is gonna be James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. This was on my spring TBR, but I didn't get to it, and I really wanna read it this summer. I don't know anything about it other than it's about a person who goes to Paris, and I think he has an affair, and I think it's gonna be great. I also know that this is considered to be a classic, and I believe it is queer, if I'm getting that correct. And I'm interested to read it. I'm interested to see what I think about it. Next up, we have another Stephen King. This is called The Body. And if you didn't know, Stand By Me, which is a fantastic movie, is actually based off of The Body. This is following 4 friends. I think it happens during summer. It definitely happens during summer in the movie. But it's about 4 best friends who find out that there might be a dead body, and they decide to go and try to find this dead body and learn all about it. And it does sound a little morbid, but also the movie is so spectacular and makes me cry every single time. So I really want to read this little novella. I think it'll be great. And then I want to watch the movie and cry. Next up, we have Tin Man, and this is by Sarah Winman, and this sounds stunning. This is about 2 best friends, Elias and Michael, who grow up together. They kind of develop this really close friendship. I think this might be focusing on their friendship the year that potentially they both have feelings for each other, and then years and years later, they end up not together, and the readers are trying to figure out why, what happened. So it's just about their friendship turned maybe into something more romantic, and about what happened in between when they were younger and when they are older and not together. It says, this is almost a love story, but it's not as simple as that. Next up, we have a book called Sons and Daughters of Ease and Plenty, and this is by Ramona Azubel. Cover 10 out of 10. And this is about a family who goes to Martha's Vineyard for the summertime. They are a very wealthy family from New England. And while they are there at Martha's Vineyard, they discover that they don't have any money anymore. And because the parents cannot cope that now they are completely broke, they end up kind of leaving their kids very tragically and doing separate things. And the kids are kind of left on this little island in this house by themselves. And listen to the back, because this sounds so interesting. The 3 children are left for days with no guardian whatsoever in an improvised Neverland, hemmed by the tender, witty, and resourceful Cricket, age 9. The setup of this sounds so interesting to me. I can already picture these children kind of like making Neverland out of Martha's Vineyard and kind of fending for themselves. I think it's gonna be really interesting, probably pretty powerful, and I'm hoping maybe a little bit funny. Next up, we have a new release. It's called Housemates, and this is by Emma Copley Eisenberg. This book has been getting such rave reviews and so much buzz. I immediately had to go out and pick it up. All I know about this is that it is following 2 women, I believe, who go on a road trip. And while they're going on this road trip, I think they're discussing things like art and literature and their love lives. I think it's potentially maybe a romance, but maybe not. Summer's the perfect time to read about a road trip, you know? And then finally, the last book on this massive summer TBR is going to be Remarkably Bright Creatures, and this is by Shelby Van Pelt. This isn't necessarily a book that I would typically reach for, but I like expanding my reading tastes, and this has such high ratings on Goodreads, and so many people love this book. I think it's just gonna be perfect for the summertime. We're following a woman who is grieving the loss of her husband who has just sadly passed away, and to keep herself busy, she decides to volunteer at the local aquarium. She's dealing with a lot because in addition to her husband passing away, she's also missing her son, who has just disappeared randomly. And she's trying to solve what happened to her son to make sure that he's okay. And somehow this octopus and her become besties, and the octopus helps her solve the mystery. I don't really know how. I can guarantee you when I read this, I will be visiting my local aquarium. So exciting. Well, there you have it, you guys. That's it. Those are all of the books that I have on my very lengthy summer TBR list. I have a very important question for you, and that is, what books are on your summer TBR list? I did also ask this question on Instagram, and let me just tell you, whether it's a backlist title, whether you want to talk about a genre, or whether you want to mention a new release, I'm all ears, because I feel like you can never have too many options for the summertime. It's one of the best seasons to read tons and tons of books. So please share share with me all of the books you want to read this summer so that I can add more books to this TBR. Also, a huge thank you once again to today's sponsor, which was Burga. Once again, a huge thank you to Burga for sponsoring today's video. If you are interested in checking out any of their beautiful and aesthetic phone cases, or really any of the cases for any of your electronic devices, I highly recommend checking them out. You can use my code AlexandraX15 to get 15% off of your purchase, and they're also having a great 2 for 4 sale. My link and my code can be found down below in my description box. And also a big thank you to all of my patrons over at Fox and Wood, especially the Ink and Quill Club members, who are all the executive producers of every single video that I create. All of your names will be down below in my description box. And the emoji of the day is the sunshine emoji, because yes, it is in fact summertime. I think that's it though, you guys. So until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will chat with you very soon. Bye!